The night was colder than usual on the broken colony world. The wind carried dust and the smell of smoke from faraway fires. Children were asleep inside broken shelters, and only a few men stood guard near the gates. Among them was Daniel, a widowed human father. Holding a small lantern in his hand, his face looked tired, his eyes heavy with years of loss and struggle. He had survived many battles, but his biggest fight now was to raise his 2 young daughters alone. Life in the colony was harsh, food was always short, medicine was rare, and trust between humans and aliens was almost gone. War had destroyed cities, and fear had made people cruel. Daniel had lost his wife to sickness 3 winters ago, and since then, he had done everything to keep his daughters safe. But deep inside, he knew something was missing. His girls needed more than food and walls. They needed care, love, and someone to guide them when he could not. That evening, while returning from the outer fence, Daniel noticed a figure hiding in the shadows of the ruins. At first, he thought it was a thief or raider. But as he came closer, he saw her clearly. An alien woman, her skin marked with pale scars, her clothes torn, her body weak from hunger. She looked like a ghost. Shivering in the cold, her eyes, however, still carried a strange fire, a mixture of pain and pride. Daniel had seen her kind before. Outcasts from alien clans who were banished and left to die. No one in the colony would dare give them food or shelter. For humans, they were enemies. For aliens, they were traitors. The woman staggered when she tried to stand. Her hands shook, and her voice cracked as she whispered, "I just need warmth, just one night." Her words were desperate but soft. Daniel looked at her for a long moment. Something inside him stirred, not hatred, not fear, but recognition. She was alone, just like him. She had been cast away, just like his daughters had lost their mother. He could have turned away, he could have left her there, and no one would have blamed him. But instead, Daniel spoke the words that even shocked him as they left his lips. "I need a mother for my daughters," he said slowly, his voice steady but heavy with meaning. "You need shelter. Come with me." The alien woman froze, her wide eyes searching his face for a trick. She had been called many things before: beast, danger, curse, but never had anyone offered her a place in their home. Her lips trembled and she whispered, "Why?" "You don't even know me." Daniel's answer was simple, almost painful. "Because my daughters need someone, and because leaving you out here would make me less than human." The walk back to the shelter was silent. She followed him, her steps slow and unsure. When they reached the small wooden door, Daniel's daughters were already awake. Rubbing their eyes, the younger one, Emily, hid behind her father when she saw the alien woman. The older girl, Sarah, stood still, clutching her blanket tightly. Their eyes were full of fear, and Daniel understood. But he gently placed his hand on their shoulders and said, "She will stay with us tonight. She is not our enemy." The alien woman lowered her head, ashamed. She sat near the corner, far away from the children, as if she didn't belong. The fire in the small stove gave the room a soft glow, and for the first time in weeks she felt warmth. Her hands trembled as she held the cup of water Daniel gave her. She had forgotten what kindness looked like. Still, she kept her distance, afraid that at any moment the kindness would break. As the daughters whispered to each other in fear, Daniel lay awake, staring at the roof. He had just made a choice that could change everything. The colony would not forgive him if they found out. Neighbors would whisper, leaders would accuse, some might even threaten his life, but deep inside, Daniel knew this decision was not about them. It was about his daughters, about giving them a chance to feel family again. The alien woman, curled up in the corner, closed her eyes. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she thought of her past. She had been rejected by her people, unwanted by humans, and left to wander. But tonight, in this small, fragile home, someone had spoken to her not as a curse, but as a person. She did not know what tomorrow would bring. But for the first time in years, she allowed herself to hope. Outside, the wind howled. Inside, a widowed man, 2 frightened children, and an outcast alien shared the same roof. None of them knew how their lives were about to change. But one thing was certain. The story of this strange family had just begun. The morning sun broke through the cracks of the weak roof, spilling light into Daniel's small home. The alien woman stirred awake, blinking against the brightness. Her body, stiff from sleeping, curled in the corner. She was not used to walls, fire, or the sound of quiet breathing beside her. For months she had lived in ruins, in caves, under the open sky where cold winds became her only company. Now inside this fragile shelter, She felt safe and yet trapped. Daniel was already awake, busy tending the stove and preparing a thin meal. His daughters sat together, whispering, their small eyes never leaving the alien woman. Emily clutched Sarah's arm, frightened. Sarah tried to look strong, but Daniel could see the doubt in her face. He knew it would take time. Trust did not grow in a single night. The alien woman slowly sat up, her eyes darting from the door to the children. Her whole body was tense, like a creature ready to flee at the first sign of danger. When Daniel handed her a small bowl of soup, she stared at it suspiciously. In her past, kindness had always carried a hidden blade, but the smell of warm broth was too much for her empty stomach. Her trembling hands lifted the bowl and she drank. It had been so long since she had tasted something made with care. Do you have a name? Daniel asked gently. His voice was calm, steady, as if speaking to a frightened bird. The woman looked at him, then looked away. My people stripped me of it, she whispered, her voice sharp with shame. Then here, Daniel said, you will be whoever you choose to be. The words struck her like a spark in the dark, but she stayed silent, afraid to believe in them. The daughters watched in silence. Emily whispered, Papa, is she dangerous? Daniel bent down, brushing his daughter's hair with his rough hand. She is like us, he said softly. She has no one left. Sarah frowned, her young eyes full of mistrust. But she's not like us, Sarah argued. Her gaze slid to the alien's scarred skin, the strange patterns running across her arms. She's different, Daniel sighed, knowing his daughter's fear was not wrong. Yes, she was different, but so was everyone in this broken world. Outside, neighbors began their morning tasks. Daniel worried what would happen if anyone saw the alien woman inside his home. The colony lived on strict rules. No alien could enter. No outcast could be sheltered. Anyone who broke these rules risked punishment. He knew whispers traveled fast, and one mistake could destroy everything. Yet when he looked at his daughters, and then at the silent woman in the corner, he felt his choice was still right. The alien woman shifted uncomfortably. I should go, she said suddenly, her voice low, almost guilty. This place is not safe for me. Or for you. Her words were heavy with fear. Daniel's heart tightened. He had expected this. Where will you go? He asked quietly. She had no answer. Her lips parted, but only silence came out. The truth was cruel. There was nowhere for her to go. Daniel stood, his rough hands clenched into fists. You walk out there and you die, he said firmly. You stay here and maybe, just maybe, we all survive. The alien woman looked at him, her eyes wide. No one had ever spoken of her survival as something that mattered. Her own people had left her to die. But here was a human, an enemy, telling her she still had worth. That night, when darkness fell again, she sat outside the small shelter, staring at the broken stars above. Her mind battled against itself. Should she stay, risking danger from the colony? Should she leave, risking death in the wastelands? Her hands tightened on the edge of her torn cloak, her chest rising with uneven breaths. She had lived too long in fear, too long without a place. The idea of belonging was terrifying, almost painful, and the daughters whispered in their beds. I don't like her, Emily said softly. She looked scary. Sarah was silent for a long moment before answering. Maybe Papa is right, she admitted. Maybe she just needs a family. But even as she said the words, she wasn't sure she believed them. Daniel stayed awake long into the night. His mind replayed the look in the alien woman's eyes, the hunger, the fear, the silent plea for something more than food. He knew her decision could change everything. Would she walk away and vanish forever into the wastelands? Or would she stay, risking everything to take the place no one else would? The alien woman's heart trembled as she sat outside, her breath rising into the cold air. For the first time in many years, she faced a choice that was not about survival alone. It was about trust, about family, about hope. And though her lips did not move, inside her soul whispered the question she could not escape. Could an outcast alien truly become a mother to human children? The answer she knew would not come easily, but the first spark of possibility had been lit. And in the silence of the night, that spark burned quietly, waiting to grow. The days passed slowly after the alien woman entered Daniel's home. She spoke little, ate only when given food, and kept her distance from the children. Yet her quiet presence was noticed, not just by the daughters, but also by the eyes of the colony. Walls had no secrets here. and whispers traveled faster than the wind one morning. As Daniel carried a bucket of water from the well, two men blocked his path. Their faces were hard, their voices sharp. "Is it true?" one asked, his eyes narrowing. "They say you brought one of them into your house." Daniel's jaw tightened, his hands gripping the bucket. "What happens in my home is my concern," he replied firmly. The second man leaned closer, his voice low with warning. "Your wife is gone, but that doesn't mean you bring danger to your daughters, or to us all." The bucket trembled in Daniel's grip, but he said nothing more. Walking past them, he knew the whispers had begun, and soon the entire colony would be against him. Inside the house, Sarah and Emily had their own battles. The younger girl still feared the alien woman, keeping distance whenever she entered the room. But one night, Emily woke from a nightmare. Crying softly, the alien woman, sitting silently near the door, moved closer without a word. Her scarred hands gently touched the girl's hair, and she hummed a low, strange melody. It was not a human song, but it carried warmth, like a lullaby from another world. Emily's sobs faded, her breathing slowed, and she fell asleep again. The next morning, she did not tell anyone, but deep inside her fear had lessened. Sarah, however, remained watchful. She was older, and she remembered how their mother used to protect them. To her, the alien woman was a shadow trying to take a place that could never be replaced. When she caught the woman staring at the family's small collection of pictures, Sarah's anger burned. "That's my mother," Sarah snapped, pulling the photo away. "You'll never be her." The alien woman's face darkened, her lips tightening. "I do not wish to be her," she whispered softly, almost to herself. "But you may need me to be something else." The tension inside the house grew heavier each day. Outside, the whispers in the colony grew louder. Women whispered at the well. Children pointed at Sarah and Emily, calling them names. "Aliens' daughters," they shouted. Throwing stones, Sarah tried to fight back. But the shame and anger cut deep. At night, she told her father, "They hate us now because of her." Daniel's heart ached. Yet he stood firm. "Let them hate me," he said. "But you will not turn away kindness. Not while I live." The alien woman watched all of this silently. She felt the weight of blame, the anger of strangers, the pain of children. Part of her wanted to leave, to run back into the wastelands. But every time she thought of it, she remembered the warm fire, the little girl's sleepy trust, the man's steady eyes. For the first time in years, she was part of something, even if it was fragile and unwanted by others. One evening, as the family ate their thin meal, there was a knock at the door. Daniel opened it to find the colony's council leader. A stern old man with sharp eyes. Behind him stood two guards. "Daniel," the man said coldly, "rumors reach us that you shelter an outcast alien." Daniel did not flinch. "Rumors are true," he replied. The guards shifted uneasily, waiting for an order. The leader frowned, his voice rising. "Do you understand what this means? You put all of us at risk, you break our rules, and for what? For her?" His finger stabbed the air toward the woman sitting quietly inside. Daniel's chest swelled with defiance. "For my daughters," he said, his voice strong. "They need more than walls, they need care, and she is not our enemy." The room grew tense, the council leader glaring at him as if he were a traitor. Finally, the old man spat on the ground and turned away. "You'll regret this," he said, his voice bitter. As they left, Sarah and Emily trembled, afraid of what would come next. That night, the alien woman sat near the fire, her face lit by the flickering glow. "You risk everything for me," she said quietly. Daniel met her gaze, his voice calm but firm. "I risk nothing that matters." The words shook her deeply. No one had ever defended her before. No one had ever claimed she was worth the risk. Still, fear lingered in her heart. Would the colony turn against them? Would the daughters ever accept her fully? Her chest ached with doubt, but also with something new, something she had not felt in years, hope. She looked at Daniel's daughters, sleeping close to each other, and thought, maybe this is where I belong, outside. The whispers of the colony carried on, sharper than knives, but inside the small house a strange, fragile bond was slowly being formed, and though none of them knew it yet, the greatest test of that bond was still waiting just beyond the horizon. The nights grew colder and food became harder to find. The colony rationed supplies tightly, and Daniel often returned home with only a handful of dried bread or a bowl of thin soup. His daughters tried to hide their hunger, but he could see it in their eyes. The alien woman ate even less, sometimes pushing her share back toward the children. She said nothing, but her actions spoke louder than words. Still, fear lingered in the small home, especially in Sarah's heart. One evening, the youngest daughter, Emily, began to cough. At first it was light, but within days her small body shook violently, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Daniel searched the colony for medicine, but the shelves were empty. The doctor shook his head. "We have nothing left for children. Save your strength for the healthy." Daniel's fists clenched, rage burning in his chest. How could he save his daughter without help? That night Emily lay weak and pale, her tiny hands gripping the blanket tightly. Sarah sat beside her, whispering softly, "Stay with me. Don't leave me." Daniel knelt at their side, his heart breaking. He had already buried his wife, and the thought of losing a daughter filled him with dread. From the corner of the room, the alien woman watched silently. Her eyes moved from Emily's trembling lips to Daniel's shaking hands. For hours she remained still until finally she stood. "I know something," she whispered, her voice low. Daniel turned sharply, his eyes desperate. "What do you mean?" he asked. The woman's gaze dropped, her hands tightening around her cloak. "My people used plants for healing, plants that still grow beyond the colony walls." Daniel's breath caught. He knew the wastelands outside were filled with danger, raiders, beasts, and freezing nights. But he also knew this might be the only chance to save Emily. "You can do this?" Daniel asked, his voice steady but filled with doubt. The alien woman nodded slowly. "It is risky, but if I do nothing, she will not see the next moon." Sarah's eyes flashed with anger. "No!" she cried, standing. "You can't trust her. What if she poisons Emily instead?" Her words cut like a knife, and the alien woman flinched, her face shadowed with pain. But Daniel placed a hand on Sarah's shoulder, his voice calm. "She is all we have now. We must try." The next morning, before the sun had fully risen, the alien woman left the colony, wrapped in her torn cloak. She slipped through the cracks in the fence and vanished into the wastelands. Daniel waited anxiously, pacing the small room. Every moment feeling like a lifetime, Sarah sat beside Emily, still angry, but too frightened to argue more. Her mistrust battled with her hope. What if the alien returned with nothing, or worse, never returned at all? Hours passed before the door creaked open again. The alien woman entered, her arms full of strange leaves and roots, her body scratched and bleeding from thorns. Her breaths were heavy, her skin marked with dust, but her eyes burned with determination. Daniel rushed forward. "You found them?" She nodded without speaking and began to prepare the mixture. She crushed the roots with a stone, boiled the leaves in a small pot, and whispered words in her own tongue as she worked. The smell filled the room, bitter but strangely soothing. When the mixture was ready, she lifted a spoon to Emily's lips. The little girl coughed weakly, but swallowed. The alien woman sang softly, the same low melody she had once hummed to Emily in the night. Hours passed, and slowly the child's coughing eased, her breathing steadying, her small face relaxing. By morning, Emily slept peacefully, her fever broken. Daniel's eyes filled with tears of relief. He turned to the alien woman, his voice breaking. "You saved her." For a long moment she said nothing, only lowered her head. "I only gave what I knew," she murmured. "But she fought to live." Sarah stood frozen, staring at her sister's calm face, then at the alien woman. Her heart twisted with confusion. Fear still clung to her, but gratitude now grew beside it. She could no longer deny what she had seen with her own eyes. When Emily awoke later, she smiled weakly at the alien woman and whispered, "Thank you." The alien froze, as if the words themselves were a gift too heavy to carry. Her eyes filled with tears she quickly wiped away. For the first time she felt more than a guest, more than a shadow in their home. She felt like she belonged. Outside, the whispers of the colony grew louder. Neighbors muttered that Daniel had risked their safety by sending the alien into the wastelands. Some claimed she would bring raiders back, others that she was casting alien spells on the children. But inside Daniel's home, the truth was clear. The alien woman was no longer just an outcast. She had become the one who held life in her hands. That night, Daniel looked across the fire at her, his daughters asleep nearby. "Whatever comes," he said firmly, "you are part of this family now." The alien woman's heart shook. She wanted to believe him, to trust his words, and though fear still whispered in her mind, a stronger voice began to rise inside her. A voice that said she had found something worth fighting for. The colony had seen danger before, but on that night fear took a new shape. The alarm bell rang out across the walls, its deep clang echoing through the cold air. Raiders were coming. Wild men from the wastelands who lived on blood and fire. Their shouts rose from the hills, and torches flickered like angry stars. Daniel rushed to the door, grabbing the rusted rifle he kept hidden behind the stove. "Stay inside," he told his daughters, his voice sharp with urgency. Sarah clutched Emily's hand, her eyes wide with terror. The alien woman stood silently, her scarred hands pressed against the wall, listening. Her eyes narrowed as the sound of raider drums grew louder. The colony gates shook as the first wave of raiders crashed against them. Men screamed, arrows flew, and the sharp crack of gunfire split the air. Inside the home, Emily cried softly, "Papa, don't go." Daniel knelt, his face pale but determined. "I must protect you," he said, "but listen to me. If they break through, you stay with her." His eyes locked with the alien woman's. "You keep them safe." The alien woman hesitated, her chest tightening. She had never been trusted with something so precious. Her own people had cast her away. Humans hated her. And now this man was asking her to guard the very future of his blood. She swallowed hard, then nodded. "I will not fail them," she whispered. The battle outside raged, the gates broke, and raiders poured into the colony like a flood of fire and steel. Daniel fought at the barricade, his rifle flashing, his fists swinging when bullets ran out, every shout, every clash of steel carried into the small home. The daughters trembled, pressing close to the alien woman. Fear burned in Sarah's chest, but she could not deny the strange comfort she felt as the woman placed her arms protectively around them. Then came the sound of splintering wood, raiders breaking doors and rushing into homes. The alien woman's heart pounded. She pushed Sarah and Emily behind her, her body tense like a predator ready to strike. Moments later, the door burst open and two raiders stepped inside. Grinning wickedly, one raised a knife, the other carried a torch. "Look what we have here," one sneered, "little birds hiding in a nest." The alien woman stepped forward, her eyes glowing with fury. "Not tonight," she growled. Before the raiders could react, she lunged, her movements sharp and fast. Her scarred hands grabbed the knife wielder's wrist, twisting until the blade clattered to the floor. She struck with a strength born of years of survival, sending him crashing into the wall. The second raider tried to swing the torch, but she knocked it from his grip, slamming him to the ground. The children watched in shock, their fear replaced by awe. Sarah clutched Emily tighter, whispering, "She's fighting for us." The alien woman's chest heaved as she stood over the raiders. Her eyes wild. For a moment she looked almost terrifying, but when she turned back to the girls, her gaze softened. "You are safe," she said firmly. "I promised your father." The night dragged on with screams and smoke. By dawn, the raiders had fled, leaving broken gates and burning houses behind. The colony was shaken, many wounded, some dead. Daniel returned, blood on his shirt but alive, his rifle hanging loosely from his hand. His eyes fell on his daughters, alive and unharmed, and then on the alien woman standing watch over them. "You kept them safe," he said, his voice heavy with gratitude. She lowered her head, but inside, her heart trembled with something new, pride, but the victory came with a cost. As the smoke cleared, whispers spread again, louder and sharper than before. "She brought them here," one man spat. "The raiders came because of her." "She is cursed," another hissed. "They always bring death." Even those who had seen her fight twisted their words, blaming her for the blood spilled. Daniel stood in the center of it all, his fists clenched. "She saved my daughters," he shouted, "while you hid behind your walls." His voice shook the air, silencing many, but not all. That evening, inside the small home, Sarah sat quietly beside the alien woman. For the first time, her eyes no longer held only mistrust. "Thank you," she said softly. Her voice breaking, the alien woman turned, surprise flickering across her face. She had expected rejection, suspicion, maybe even hatred, but instead, she had been given gratitude. Her lips trembled as she whispered back, "You are welcome." Emily leaned against her, small and tired. "Don't go," the little girl murmured. "Please don't ever go." The alien froze, her chest tightening. No one had ever asked her to stay before. Her hands shook as she placed them gently on the child's hair. "I will stay," she promised, her voice low but sure, "for as long as you need me." And though the colony whispered with anger outside, inside the home a bond had been sealed in fire and blood. A widowed man, his two daughters, and an outcast alien woman were no longer strangers sharing a roof. They had become something far more dangerous to the world that rejected them. They had become a family. The days after the raid were heavy with silence. The colony buried its dead, repaired its walls, and whispered blame into the night. Though Daniel's family had survived, their home had become the center of suspicion. Everywhere they walked, eyes followed, sharp with anger. Children mocked Sarah and Emily, calling them aliens' pets. Mothers pulled their sons away when the strange woman passed, and Daniel felt the weight of being branded a traitor. Inside the small house, life was calmer. The alien woman helped prepare food, gathered firewood, and watched the children when Daniel worked. Emily clung to her often now, her small hands trusting. Sarah, though still cautious, spoke to her more, asking questions about her world, her people, her songs. The answers were quiet but honest, and little by little Sarah's mistrust softened. Yet the woman herself was restless. Every night she sat outside, her eyes searching the distant hills, as though listening for voices that were no longer hers. One evening, while Daniel mended tools, he found her sitting in the dark. Her scarred face was pale in the moonlight, her eyes filled with sorrow. "You miss them," he said softly. She did not look at him, only whispered, "They never wanted me." Daniel was silent, waiting. She continued, her voice sharp with pain. "My people cast me out, stripped me of my name, left me to die, and yet every night I still hear their songs in my dreams." Her hands trembled, gripping her cloak. "I do not belong with them, and I do not belong with you." Daniel's jaw tightened, his heart heavy. "You belong here," he said firmly. "Because my daughters need you and because I—" He stopped, his throat closing with words he could not yet say. The woman turned, her eyes meeting his. For a brief moment silence stretched between them, filled with something unspoken. But before either could speak, a shout rang out from the colony gates. A patrol dragged in a wounded prisoner, an alien scout captured near the outer fields. The colony gathered, angry voices rising. "Spies," someone shouted. "They watch us." Waiting to strike again. The council leader's eyes turned cold when they saw Daniel's companion standing at his side. "Perhaps she called him here," the leader sneered. Murmurs spread quickly, suspicion turning into fire. Daniel stepped forward, his fists clenched. "She saved us from raiders," he shouted. "She saved my daughter's life." But his words only fueled the anger. "Then she is a traitor to them and a danger to us," the leader spat. "If you do not cast her out, we will." The alien woman's heart twisted as she listened. Rejection was familiar, but this time it cut deeper. She glanced at the children clutching Daniel's arms, their eyes full of fear. She wanted to stay, but she knew staying meant danger for them. That night, when the house grew quiet, she stood at the door, her hand pressed against the wooden frame. Her chest ached with the thought of leaving. But the voices of the colony echoed in her head. "She is danger. She brings death." Sarah woke in the night and saw her standing there. "Are you leaving?" Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. The woman froze, her throat tight. "I should," she admitted. "Your people hate me, my people despise me. I do not fit anywhere." Sarah shook her head fiercely, tears filling her eyes. "You fit here. With us," she whispered. The words pierced the alien woman's heart like no blade ever had. She sank to her knees, her hands trembling as Sarah hugged her tightly. For the first time, someone had told her she belonged. The next morning, Daniel saw the change. Her eyes were red from crying, but her face carried a strange new strength. "I will not leave," she said quietly. "They may hate me, but I will not abandon the ones who need me." Daniel nodded slowly, pride swelling in his chest. "You are braver than all of them," he said. But outside, the colony grew restless. The council leader gathered men, whispering that she was a curse. Some wanted to drive her out by force, others wanted her dead. Daniel knew it was only a matter of time before whispers turned into fire. Inside, however, the bond was no longer fragile. It had grown roots. The daughters no longer saw her as a stranger, but as part of their small, battered family. At night, when Emily curled against her side, the alien woman felt something she had never known before. Peace. But deep inside she knew peace could not last. Both worlds had cast her away, and both worlds now watched her with suspicion. Her heart belonged to this family, yet the shadow of war loomed closer every day. And as she stared into the dark horizon, she wondered, would love and trust be enough to protect them from what was coming? The tension inside the colony grew heavier with every passing day. The raid had left scars, and instead of healing, the people searched for someone to blame, and their eyes always turned toward Daniel's home. Whispers followed him like shadows. Traitor, they muttered. He sleeps beside the enemy. Children mocked Sarah and Emily until they cried. Even neighbors who once shared food now turned their backs. One afternoon, Daniel returned from the fields to find a crowd gathered near his house. The colony council leader stood at the front, his sharp voice cutting through the murmurs. This cannot continue, the man declared. You endanger us all by sheltering her. His finger stabbed the air toward the alien woman, who stood in the doorway, her face calm but her eyes burning with quiet pain. She is an outcast to her own people. She is poison to ours. If she stays, we will all suffer, the crowd shouted in agreement, voices blending into one angry roar. Cast her out. They cried, drive her away before she brings ruin upon us. The daughters clung to their father, tears streaming down their faces. Sarah shouted back, her voice shaking. She saved Emily's life. She saved us when the raiders came. But the people did not listen. Their fear was louder than truth. Daniel stepped forward, his heart pounding. For weeks he had stayed silent, trying to keep peace. But now the line had been crossed. His voice thundered above the noise. Enough! The crowd fell into uneasy silence. Daniel stood tall, his shoulders broad, his eyes burning with defiance. You speak of danger, but you did not see her save my child from death. You speak of fear, but you did not see her stand against raiders with her bare hands while you whispered in shadows. She fought for this colony as if it were her own. The council leader sneered. You've let grief blind you, Daniel. Your wife is gone. And now you let this creature take her place? The words cut deep, but Daniel did not flinch. He raised his voice even higher, his words echoing across the gathering. My wife is gone, yes, but my daughters still live. And I will not let them grow in a world of hate. This woman is not a curse. She is family. She belongs here. With us, gasps rippled through the crowd. Family was sacred, binding, unbreakable. To claim an alien as family was unthinkable. Yet Daniel's words carried a strength that made even his enemies hesitate. The alien woman stood frozen in the doorway, her chest tight. No one had ever spoken for her like this. For years she had been nameless, unwanted, less than a shadow. But now, before all who hated her, she was being claimed. Not as a burden, not as a stranger, but as family. Tears burned in her eyes. Though she did not let them fall, the council leader's face twisted with rage. You dishonor us, he spat. If she stays, the colony will collapse. You are no longer one of us if you protect her. Daniel's voice was steady as iron. Then I need no place among you. My family is here, and no one will take it from me. The daughters clung to his arms, their small faces filled with both fear and pride. Sarah raised her voice, her words sharp and brave. She saved us when none of you would if she leaves. Then we leave too. Emily nodded through her tears. She is our mother now, the crowd murmured in shock. Children calling an alien mother was unthinkable. Yet the innocence in their voices carried more truth than the anger of grown men. Some shifted uncomfortably, doubt flickering in their eyes, but others growled with fury. She will destroy us, one man shouted. Mark my words. That night the family sat together in silence. Daniel's decision had drawn a line that could never be erased. They were no longer simply a household under suspicion. They were outcasts inside their own colony. The alien woman sat near the fire, her hands trembling. Why? She asked softly, her eyes searching Daniel's face. Why risk everything for me? Daniel met her gaze, his voice low but full of truth. Because you are not a danger, you are a gift. My daughters see it, and so do I. I will not let fear steal what we have found. Sarah and Emily leaned against the alien woman, their small bodies warm against her. She placed her arms around them, her heart pounding. For so long she had been nothing, no one. But now, in this fragile home, she had become something she never dreamed, needed. Trusted, loved outside, the colony planned and plotted. Inside, the bond grew stronger, and though danger was coming, the family had chosen their path, not of fear, not of hate, but of love. The alien woman closed her eyes. Holding the children close for the first time in years, she whispered words of prayer, not to her people, not to the stars, but to hope itself. Whatever storm was coming, she would face it, because now she was no longer torn between two worlds. She had chosen one. She had chosen family. The days after Daniel's bold stand were tense. The family lived under constant watch. When Daniel walked to the well, people turned their backs. When Sarah and Emily played outside, children mocked them louder than before, and every evening, the alien woman felt the burn of 100 eyes that wished her gone. She stayed quiet, but inside she wondered how long this fragile peace could last. Then one gray morning the danger came not from whispers, but from the sky. Dark clouds swirled overhead, and a strange hum filled the air. People rushed to the walls, pointing with trembling hands from beyond the hills. A swarm of alien machines rose, their sharp wings glinting like steel blades. They were not raiders, but war drones, remnants of the old alien armies that still hunted survivors. The colony had little to defend itself. Only rusted rifles and failing walls. Panic spread like fire. The council leader shouted orders. "Man the gates! Protect the stores!" But his voice was full of fear. Men scrambled, women screamed, and children clung to their mothers. Daniel grabbed his rifle, his face grim. He turned to his daughters, his voice tight. "Stay with her," he told them, his eyes meeting the alien woman's. "You saved them once. I trust you again." The alien woman's chest tightened. She could feel the hum of the machines vibrating through her bones. These were creations of her own people, weapons she had once feared more than death itself. The colony braced for destruction, but she knew something no one else did. The drones were not mindless. They followed signals, patterns, and weaknesses, and she had been trained long ago to understand them. As the first drone swooped down, firing blasts of energy that shattered rooftops, the colony erupted in chaos. Daniel fired into the sky, hitting one, but three more swooped low, burning holes into the walls. The council leader shouted, "We're doomed. They will tear us apart." The alien woman stepped forward, her voice cutting through the noise. "Listen to me," she cried. "I know how to stop them." The crowd froze in disbelief, their faces twisted in suspicion. "You?" Someone spat. "You brought them here." But Daniel's voice rose like thunder. "She saved us before. She will save us now. Do as she says." With no time to argue, they followed her. She ordered them to light fires in a pattern across the ground, to create smoke that confused the machine's sensors. She showed Daniel where to aim, striking the drones at their weak joints instead of wasting bullets on their armored wings. The people hesitated, but when the first drone fell from the sky in a burst of sparks, hope flickered. For the first time they saw she was not their curse, but their shield. As the battle raged, a group of drones broke through, diving straight toward the children hiding near the well. The alien woman ran faster than anyone else, her body a blur. She leapt onto one of the machines, tearing at its core with her bare hands until it screeched and fell. Another drone swooped low, but she threw herself between it and the children, taking the blast across her shoulder. The pain seared through her body, but she did not fall. Her roar of defiance echoed across the colony. No more. By dusk, the last drone fell smoking onto the earth. The walls were scarred, homes were burned, but the colony still stood. And at the center of it all, the alien woman knelt, blood running down her arm, the children clinging to her sides. The people stared in stunned silence. They had seen her fight like a storm, bleed for their children, and protect them when their own leaders had failed. The council leader tried to speak, his voice trembling. She is still... But his words were drowned out by another, a mother who stepped forward. "She saved my boy," the woman cried. "If not for her, he would be ashes." Then another voice rose, and another. Soon the whispers had changed. No longer curses, but thanks. "She saved us," they said. "She saved us all." Daniel stood tall, his rifle at his side, his voice steady. "I told you, she is family. And now you see it with your own eyes." The alien woman sat trembling, her body aching but her heart beating with a strength she had never known. For the first time in her life, she was not hated, not feared, not unwanted. She was seen, truly seen. The daughters wrapped their arms around her, Emily's small voice whispering, "You're our mother now. No one can say you're not." Sarah nodded fiercely, her eyes shining with pride. "Yes, ours." Tears blurred the alien woman's vision. She had lived a lifetime of rejection, but now, in the middle of the colony that once despised her, she had been accepted, not because she begged, but because she fought. And as the stars appeared above the ruined sky, she knew this was no longer just Daniel's fight. It was hers too. She was no longer torn, no longer nameless. She was family,